you all so very much for that warm welcome. And Mrs. Rajavi, to you and to all of those in Camp Ashraf, you are the point of the spear, and we admire all of you so much for standing so firm. To my friends in Canada and colleagues in the Parliament, it is an honor to be with you today. I was reminded this morning that it is so often said in Washington that no nation can be counted upon more to follow American leadership than Canada. But when it comes to issues of human rights, of standing firm, of for all courage, of for being for what's right, Canada follows no one. The world would be wise just to follow Canada. And if you'd permit me for a moment, many of you are of Iranian origin, but you are also Canadians. I was watching the news this morning, and it occurred to me how history doesn't really change. Long before any American took to the skies over Europe, Canadians were fighting in the Battle of Britain. Shoulder to shoulder after 9/11, Canadians were in Afghanistan. And I smiled to myself this morning when I saw, long before the first German or Polish or American tank arrived in Ukraine, 4 Canadian tanks are leaving Canada today for Ukraine. Good for you. Good for Canada. We all think of history as a continuum. One day follows the next, one year follows the other, seamlessly in the pages of history. But that's not how we live our lives. It's punctuated. In the modern history of Iran, 1954, 1979, and if God willing, 2023, are years that change the course of Iranian history. I am often stunned at the amount of punishment humanity is willing to take before it says enough. People will endure so much. But haven't the Iranian people endured enough? Generations of other nations around the globe have moved on to prosperity, a golden age where children live to their potential, earn and build, where democracy in much of the world became the coin of the realm, where human rights are respected, where women have finally, thank God, in much of the world obtained an equal status. And yet we're left to ask to ourselves, how could this happen across the Americas, across Europe, much of Asia? And yet there are these few exceptions of outlaw nations. Imprisoned Cuba, jailed North Korea, and the tragedy of what has happened in Iran. Why there? It is time. History is punctuated in the year 2023. It is time for the regime to end and for the great Iranian people to be all that their history should allow them to be. And yet, now I speak to my own government, that it is understood that the mullahs are despotic. It is understood that it is an outrage to history. But yet, in the councils of government, it is said again and again, it's a tragedy, but there is no alternative. That the mullahs have done what the Shah did before them. They have destroyed every other institution, professionally, militarily, socially, civically, politically, in a sinister plan to assure that there's no one else to rule. It is not so. Yes, the mullahs destroyed Iranian society. But look at these brave young faces around me, and thousands more that are not represented here. Did they die because there's no alternative? There's every alternative. The Iranian people are a skilled, educated, productive, patriotic people who care about their children and their future as much as any other people. And from that core, ever since the revolution in '79, has been a group of people with the skill, the determination, and the resources, with a reach around the globe, that is prepared to lead. It is the MEK, it is the NCRI, it is Mrs. Rajavi. There is an alternative. I know, I used to have a congressional district that had Polish refugees and Hungarian refugees and Czech refugees. And I used to go to their rallies 30, 40 years after Soviet occupation and think, how ridiculous is this? They'll never get their freedom back. They had no leadership. They didn't have an MEK or an NCRI. But by sheer will, they got their freedom. We have that will, we have that leadership, we have that reach. This is an organization that can touch every capital in every country around the world, muster thousands of people with a strong voice in every parliament and every Congress around the globe. We are the alternative. And why the MEK? I don't suggest that the mullahs will fall and we will join in leadership simply because we're organized or determined, but because of what we stand for. What is it the Iranian people want and deserve? A functioning democracy, equal rights, equal gender rights, a nation at peace with itself and its neighbors, respecting liberties, governing with the consent of the governed. That is what the MEK and the NCRI represent. That is Mrs. Rajavi's 10-point plan. We are the alternative, and it is a good and a just alternative that the world can embrace. Now, everyone has a role. Mrs. Rajavi has spent every waking hour of every day of every year leading this fight. The role of the martyrs around me is now consigned to history. Their young lives full of promise and potential, destroyed by the tyrant. They all have their roles, and you have yours. No one's asking you to give your lives, but some of your time, your voice, maybe funds. You've played your role. But you also have relatives in Iran, and you speak with them, and they are hearing our voice today. So let us speak to them. There's not a person in Iran who cannot claim the future back for your country and create a better place for your children. You can all do something. Maybe it's posting a sign on a street against the mullahs. Maybe it's attending a rally. Maybe it's speaking with a neighbor. If you're a worker, maybe you don't go to work one day. If you're an oil worker, maybe you stop feeding the regime. If you're a soldier, maybe you remember your oath. It's Iran, the Iranian people, your history, and your culture. Not some mullah who's chosen to become a dictator and a despot. Lay down your gun. The next time there's a demonstration, put down your rifle. The next time you're pumping oil from a regime, stop the pump. The next time you see a demonstration, join in. The next time your children want to join in and you know the risk and you're afraid for their lives, let them go. Let them be part of history. We all have a role. 70 years ago, in a telling moment, Mahatma Gandhi was asked how a poor people could earn their freedom from a great empire with no weapons and no tools and no resources. He said simply, 250 million Indians cannot be ruled by 40 million foreigners unless they choose to be. I'm sorry to the Iranian people. You will not be ruled and lose another generation of hope, another generation of young Iranians, another generation of freedom, unless you let it happen. Take a stand today. Today. It is, my friends, for some of us who have fought this fight for so many years, it is getting late in our own lives. You want to see a free Iran in this generation. I believe in all my heart that this is the moment. There is too much for the mullahs to endure. The Iranian people have said enough. In this year, whoever you speak with in Iran, for whatever you can do, give it your maximum effort. As a young man and a lover of history, I remember reading some extraordinary words that I have taken with me into every fight I've ever had in my life. As a young colonel, Napoleon had his first command in the Italian Alps. And the day before the battle, he said to his young soldiers, "Tomorrow you will take a stand for your country. What you do and how you perform will be told around campfires with children on your knees for generations in your families. You are here today, the parents of these young children who gave their lives, so many on the streets of Iran today, for generations. Your children and their children after them will ask, in the year 2023, when people took to the streets, when thousands died, when it was time to take back the Iranian nation for the Iranian people, father, mother, brother, sister, where were you?" I know where you were. Thank you for being here today. Mrs. Rajavi, thank you for all that you do. God bring us victory in the year 2023.
Thank you.